Is someone making you feel bad about yourself for seemingly no reason at all? Learn why at my other podcast, Love and Abuse, over at loveandabuse.com. Life presents the toughest challenges. Every day you are faced with decisions that test your ability to express who you really want to be in this world. We're told to keep saying affirmations and keep thinking positively, but what do you do when that stuff doesn't work? Welcome to the Overwhelmed Brain, where you'll learn to make decisions that are right for you so that you can create the life you want now. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Paul Coliani and I am here to help you increase your emotional intelligence so that you can avoid dysfunction, handle toxic situations with grace and ease, and show up as your authentic self. Everything I talk about on the show is my personal opinion and is meant for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult a medical or psychological professional before making any changes that could affect your physical or mental health. So glad that you're here. Thank you for stopping by and checking out the show if you're new, and if you are a long-time listener, I am glad to have you back. For those who have not heard this show before, let me give you a 10-second background. I've been doing it since 2013. I started it because I knew that everything I learned about my own dysfunctions and my own toxic behavior in my past could help others. That's not the only reason I started the show. I'm also healed from a lot of the stuff that I went through, and I'm always working on stuff. But I share with you some what I believe very practical tools and sometimes unorthodox tools that you won't hear anywhere else. So that's what I like to do here. And again, I'm so glad that you're here listening, because you could choose anyone to listen to, but you chose me. So if you're still listening, let's start the show. Let's get into what we're talking about today, which I think I'm going to make it into a relationship show. I do talk about romantic relationships on my other podcast, Love and Abuse, and I do talk about them over here as well. But all relationships are important, and not everyone is in a romantic relationship. I like to talk about relationships in general, that you can apply everything I'm talking about in those relationships. Yet we all know that romantic relationships have some unique variables and a unique dynamic. And sometimes you have to be very specific about a romantic relationship and what to do in that case, because we treat romantic relationships differently. We definitely treat them differently than, most of us treat them differently than family. Most of us treat them differently than a relationship with our children or our parents. Usually romantic relationships are the ones that we feel the most secure and trusting and the most vulnerable in a good way, because we feel safe with the person they're with, and we are also more likely to tell our deepest, darkest secrets to our romantic partner in our life. So that's why romantic relationships are usually a different type of animal. Also, romantic relationships can be a huge challenge, as most of you know, as I certainly know. Again, a little bit of my background. I've failed at every single relationship I've had except the one I'm in now. I'm hoping I got it right this time, and I think I have, because I feel different in this relationship. That is one of the key indicators of a different result, is when you feel completely different in the situation or the relationship that you're in. I'm not saying it's the only indicator. It is an indicator that you'll probably have different results because you feel different. And the difference should be maybe obvious, meaning you were in a relationship before. Let's talk about romantic relationships. You were in a romantic relationship before, and there were signs that it wasn't working, or there were challenges that you just couldn't get past. And while you were in it, maybe you swept some stuff under the rug. Maybe you went into a little bit of denial. Maybe you didn't think it was a big deal, but it turned into a big deal, or it turned into a breakup or a divorce. And then maybe it surprised you, or maybe it didn't. But you learned something. Hopefully you learned something from that experience, and then the next romantic relationship you get into, if you wanted to get into another one, if you are in one now, you feel a little different, you think a little different because of what you learned from the previous one. I think the people that have been in the longest long-term relationships have more challenging than the rest of us. You know, your grandparents that have the 50 or 60 year anniversary, I think they have it more challenging because they've been together for so long that they've not learned anything else about anyone else, not giving them the variety of experiences that it sometimes takes to learn the lessons you need to learn in order to relate better to the person you're with. I'm not saying I'm 100% right here, but I think that a lot of the times people that have been together for a very, very long time don't have the wealth of experiences and failures that sometimes help you become more wise in your decision making and in your thinking and in life in general. I think failure brings us more wisdom. I mean, we know that's true. When you fail, you get wiser because now you know what not to do. When you're in a relationship for a long period of time and it's not going well, the relationship may not have experienced enough of a failure in order for you to learn. That's a weird thing to say, but I think it's true. I think it's true. When you have not experienced enough of a failure or enough of a major challenge that was nearly impossible to get through, but you did it, you may not get the wisdom and the learnings you need in order to create a more successful relationship, you know, the one you're in or a future one. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it's important to understand that if you're stuck in a challenge or a multitude of challenges in your relationship, then it's possible you're inside the same box of thinking that got you there in the first place. I mean, I just quoted Einstein an episode or two ago saying something like, and I paraphrase, you can't get out of a problem using the same thinking that got you there. And it is very relevant with relationships. It is very difficult to get out of the challenges or some of the challenges in relationships when you are the same people that got into those challenges. This is why when you fail enough in a relationship or multiple relationships and you choose to learn what caused the failures, you feel differently after you learn. You feel like a different person. And this is what I meant before when I say you'll feel different. You will experience the relationship from a different perspective. You will think differently. You will make different decisions and hopefully wiser decisions. And going forward, every time you reach a major failure or challenge in a relationship that you overcome, or even a divorce, you get to take those learnings with you if you choose. And I've said that a couple times. You really need to choose to take the learnings. Like, I didn't choose for the first 2 or 3 relationships that I failed in. And failure is a big word. You know, I don't mean that if a relationship fails, you're a failure. I just mean I learned about my shortcomings. I learned about my own dysfunctional behavior and my own toxic behaviors, and therefore I discovered how I failed in the relationship. It doesn't mean I was the cause, the only reason for the breakup, although I think I was a major reason for all my breakups, but it does mean that I take responsibility for my role. And I don't mind the word failure in my life. You may or may not mind that either, but what I want you to do is find a word that works for you. If you went through some sort of breakup, maybe it's not a failure. Maybe you just didn't succeed. Maybe it is just a breakup and that's all it is. Maybe you don't have to define it at all. For me, I like the word failure. It rings true for me and it reminds me what I don't want to happen again. And it's such a big reminder and such a bad feeling that it's a compulsion to want to learn where I failed so that I never do that again. And again, that works for me, and whatever works for you is something I would like you to do, is to understand where the relationships that you had ran into a challenge or became something that you didn't want them to become, or you broke up or got divorced, what caused it? It could have been all their fault. That could happen too. Hey, they did this to me and they did this to me and then they left me. Absolutely. That happens. Sometimes you can't do anything about it because that person has a different agenda. And when they have a different agenda, don't blame yourself. That is their agenda and they didn't share it with you. Because if they shared it with you, you probably wouldn't have stuck around. Or if you did stick around, maybe you thought things would change. And then, you play a role in that. But if they didn't share it with you and you had no idea, that was their agenda. They may have been being selfish. They may have had other things in mind the whole time, but you can't stop certain people from doing what they're going to do because they have their own reasons. So we have to let them go and learn their own lessons while we learn the lesson from what just happened and move on ourselves, without looking in the rearview mirror, without wondering what we could have done differently, because they had their own agenda. I don't know when it started, but at one point they decided that they're going to follow a plan that you're unaware of. That's not fair. I know that's not fair, but it can help you if you're blaming yourself, if you think you're the cause. No, some people just have an agenda. And they move on with that agenda, and now that they're gone, you have to move on with your agenda, which is taking care of yourself and making sure that if your self-worth took a hit, that you fill up that healthy ego meter. And if you feel less lovable, to make sure that your lovability has nothing to do when it comes to somebody with an agenda. Your sense of significance in people's lives has nothing to do with a person that has an agenda. All of that has nothing to do with somebody that is on a path different than yours. It just didn't work. So now we move on. We'll get stuck when we start obsessively thinking what we could have done better and what we should have done better. You don't want to get into that obsessive type thinking. And I know some people listening are, but there's nowhere to go with it. When you're thinking obsessively about how you could have shown up better and what you could have done differently, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do about it except look forward and be aware of what happened in your past so that you don't repeat the same mistakes. And sometimes they aren't your mistakes, like I said. Sometimes there are other things going on in the relationship that you can't control. So you move on. Easier said than done. I've not moved on easily from any of my relationships. So I know how it feels. I've been there. But I have chosen to take responsibility for the role I played and for my lack of awareness, for my lack of healthy communication. Like when things went wrong in the relationship, was I communicating effectively? No, I was not. Were you? Maybe you were, but I was not. I did not communicate effectively. I did not tell my partner when I was angry. I just stuffed it down. I held it in. I didn't want them to see me angry. And believe it or not, that's one of the things that pushed them away, because I wasn't showing my authentic self, even though I feared that showing them my authentic self would push them away. When we don't show authenticity to the closest person in our life, they have to interpret who we are. And if we leave their impression of us reliant upon their interpretation of us, you risk a high level of misinterpretation. That's what happened to me all the time. I was always misinterpreted because I was hiding a part of me that I didn't want them to see, so I would show them a part of me that I believed was best, and that worked against me every time. I'm not going to get into that too much, but I wanted to share that with you, that a relationship based on inauthenticity, where you're not sharing things, where you're not speaking up, where you may not even be introducing things that are very important to you, that could be relationship enders. When you don't bring this stuff up, challenges continue and breakups can occur. So breakups can occur regardless if you bring this up, but since they can occur either way, why not bring up the hard stuff? Why not have the hard conversations? Why not make it the most authentic relationship you can so that you're not repressing who you are, and you find out if you will be accepted for who you are. Because do you want to be with somebody who doesn't accept you for who you are? And would you want to stay with someone where you have to fake who you are to them indefinitely? I would want nothing to do with a relationship where I couldn't be mostly authentic. It doesn't mean I stream every single emotion and every single thought that comes through me so that they get the brunt of it. It just means when there's something on my mind, I have to have a conversation about it. And if I can't have that conversation with the person I'm supposed to love and trust and feel safe to be the most vulnerable with, then who can I have that with? And how can I ever be myself? The best relationship is the one where you can show up as yourself. Write that down somewhere. The best relationship is the one where you can show up as yourself. Because then you don't have to try. It's easy. This is what happens. You get into a relationship where you choose to be yourself. Then you find out if that person is going to accept you for who you are or if they want you to be someone different. And do you really want to be with somebody who wants you to be different? That's where I go with it. And that's my philosophy. And that's how I treat my relationship right now. Do I want to be with somebody who wants me to be different than who I am? I'm not afraid to have a real conversation. I think that's where a relationship needs to go. I mean, if you want to define a strong, healthy relationship, it's one where you can both have a hard conversation that you believe could actually end the relationship. It's that hard. And you get through it, you pass the challenge, and the relationship comes out on the other side with more strength, more resilience, and more understanding and more love than ever because you showed the person the most vulnerable part of you. And some relationships will not pass this test. I get that. And that's why some people don't have the hard conversations because they don't want the relationship to end. Yet some people are in relationships where they can't be themselves. What's the point of that? I don't understand that. I don't understand a relationship that you'd want to stay in where you can't be yourself. I mean, of course, I understand. I know why people do it. There's a lot of reasons why people do it. Some people don't want to be alone. Some people have kids and commitments. Some people have been married for a long time, and what else are they going to do? There are a ton of reasons. But the way I approach it is it really worth it if you can't be yourself? And I don't mean to say that to make you think, oh, this relationship is terrible because I can't be myself. No, because some people are happy doing what they're doing. If you're happy in the relationship, or you're at least somewhat satisfied and you're okay with things, don't listen to anything I'm saying. Just go with the flow. Keep going, because don't fix what isn't broken. Keep doing what works. But if you're trying to figure out why you aren't happy, or when is the relationship going to get better, or what do I need to do to make the relationship better, then maybe these words will ring true for you, because I remember all my relationships in the past where I never spoke authentically. I was never my true self. They never saw the real me. I just adapted to every situation so that they would see a version of me that I wanted them to see, so that I wouldn't have to face confrontation. I wouldn't have to fear being alone, because if I showed them anger, then I feared that they might leave me. So that caused me to repress my anger. And of course, when you repress negativity, it comes out in other, sometimes destructive ways later. So these are all the things that I've talked about in previous episodes, and I'm sure you can find very specific episodes that you're looking for if you are dealing with anything that I'm talking about today. But today is going to be about relationships. I'm going to answer 2 or 3 emails about relationships, and we'll see where we go with them when I come back right after this. Again, thanks for joining me. Be right back. Sometimes I get emails that ask me, hey, Paul, I'm dealing with this problem and I don't know who to contact. I need a therapist. Do you have any connections? Do you know any therapists that you can refer me to? And quite frankly, I don't. But this is why I have this amazing service on my show called BetterHelp. It is a service I get feedback on quite a lot. Good feedback that tells me, hey, I started using BetterHelp and I love it. This is exactly what I needed. This is a professional counseling service that you can use online through a messaging system or on the phone or a video chat. And what you do is you sign up and they assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. And what's great about that is if you work with this therapist for a while and you decide, this is just not the greatest fit, you can find another one. And, everyone has their match. Everyone talks to people differently and connects with people differently. Some prefer a certain gender. Some prefer a certain personality type. And what I love about BetterHelp is you get such a massive selection, but you're not overwhelmed with that selection. They just match you up, and you can certainly choose from the selection if you'd like, but they find somebody that works for you. And that's what you're looking for, somebody that works for you. So if you are in a space where you can't figure out what is interfering with your happiness, I highly recommend this service called BetterHelp. It's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. And when you go to their website, it's betterhelp.com/brain. And that gives you 10% off your first month. And once you sign up, you can start communicating in under 24 hours. And it's not self-help. This is actual professional counseling. And you can send a message to your counselor anytime, and you'll get timely, thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. So whatever you're dealing with, head over to BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/brain. Get your 10% off the first month and join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health today. All right, welcome back to a special relationship edition of The Overwhelmed Brain. Let's get right into the first message. This person writes, "Hey, Paul, I listened to your episode called When Their Sexual History Bothers You, and I found it really useful. However, a lot of the people that my partner has had sex with in the past are people that we socialize with as a couple now in a group environment. I can't help but feel jealous and angry if I see him talking to them or giving them any sort of attention, even if this is just normal, friendly conversation. I know I'm being insecure, but I really struggle to not compare myself to his old sexual partners, and I feel anxious that old feelings will come back when I see them interacting. I've spoken to him about my feelings a few times, and he reassures me that he is not interested in them. He's only interested in me now. But I can tell he finds it irritating that it bothers me in the first place. Do you have any tips on how I can deal with this insecurity, as I find it very draining and embarrassing, but it's something I just can't seem to overcome? Thank you." Okay, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I think when I was younger, I probably felt the same way. And I think a lot of us go through this. If you know your partner has had a sexual history with someone, some people will be able to handle that no problem. Some people won't. Some people will see it as a threat. I think I would ask you, how is it a threat to you? And I think you would reply to me, well, what if he gets a sexual interest in that person again? What would happen if that happened? What if he's turned on by them, and what happens then? And then I would tell you, well, that could happen with anyone he meets. I mean, anyone in the world. Not that I want to make you paranoid here, but it could happen with anyone in the world. So there's a qualification process that must take place in your mind that if he's had a sexual history with someone, you feel a threat by that someone. So my question is, why that someone? Why does it have to be that someone? Why can't it just be anyone? And if it is anyone, of course, you are dealing with insecurity issues, like you said, and you will need to deal with that. You'll need to work on that in yourself. And I do have episodes on insecurity and jealousy that I highly recommend that you listen to over at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. But if I asked you that question, why those specific people, you would probably say, well, it's probably easier access. Like they've already been familiar with each other, so it's easier access, or it could be easier access. Which then, as we continue this conversation, I would ask you, would it be better if he saw those people without you? When they're in a group environment and you weren't there. And I'm sure you'd tell me, no, that would make it worse. So we could have a conversation like that. We probably wouldn't get very far because you would still be dealing with your insecurities. So this is where I like to go, even in myself. If I ever develop jealousy, I have to remind myself that my girlfriend chose me and she wants to be with me. Otherwise, she wouldn't be with me. And if I started showing jealousy, it might actually be cute to her, but if I started showing jealousy often enough, it would become irritating. So this is my suggestion for you. And this is going to be a little strange, but I'm going to ask you one question. Would it be better to have this person in your life that has had experiences with other people and still chooses to be with you? Or would you rather he hadn't had those experiences with other people and was curious about what those experiences would be like because he hadn't had those experiences? It's an odd question. It's a weird question. It's probably an unfair question, but I'm asking you because I want you to plant that in your mind in a deep way, that sometimes someone's sexual past is in the past for a reason. Because if it was really that great and the relationship worked out, then they'd probably still be together. But if it's not, and they're not together, then there's something about you that is not them. So that's my first question to you, is that would it be better that he didn't have those experiences and was curious, or did have those experiences and been there, done that? It's strange. I'm not saying this is going to heal you and everything's going to be great, but it can be a nicer place to go in your mind than where you probably are going, which is, oh my God, they did it before. What if they do it again? And that's probably not even an option. I mean, in most healthy friendships, there could have been a past, but it's in the past and it stays there for a reason. So it's probably a good reason and it's there, and it's a nice thing to be able to get along with people even when you've had relationships with them. And I'm not saying that I don't empathize with you, because I was there. I was certainly in a place when my ex-girlfriends met up with their ex-boyfriends or ex-husbands. There was a deep insecurity in me that kicked in and caused me to be jealous and possessive, and I wouldn't want them to go meet or anything like that. But I learned that my own trust issues were causing a bigger rift in the relationship than them having a friendship with an ex-partner. And unless your boyfriend is seeing these people all the time and it's just casual, like you said, and you're usually with him, maybe you're just blowing this out of proportion, like you're intimating, there's probably absolutely nothing to be worried about. So that means we come back to you, and this is where I like to not necessarily give you the magic pill that solves everything, but I'd prefer, in this case, you explore what exactly is going on inside of you that causes you to be insecure. Because I've found most often that jealousy issues or fear that they're going to hook up with somebody usually indicates that they don't trust the person they're with 100%. Because if you trusted the person that you were with 100%, then a naked supermodel could stand in front of them and they wouldn't betray your trust. I don't know if that's a good example, and it's probably inappropriate, but I'm going to tell you that example because that's how it should be. If someone could be super attractive, someone with a major sexual history could stand right in front of them, and if you feel they're 100% trustworthy, then you don't have those feelings of insecurity. Because why would you be insecure knowing they wouldn't do anything? Now, you did mention that there is a comparison issue, like you compare yourself to these other people, which is funny because he chose you and he's staying with you, which means if anyone's comparing themselves to anyone, it's the people that don't have him anymore looking at you asking, what does she have that I don't? So it works both ways. I'm not saying that's what happens, but it's amazing what our mind does. It goes into all these places. So I would definitely address a trust issue with him. And you may think, well, I trust him. I trust him wholeheartedly. But I would beg to differ, because when you trust someone, then there's no reason to be insecure. Now, perhaps your brain is going into a space of, well, I trust him, but I don't trust them. And if that's the case, if you trust him, then you don't even have to visit your trust for them. It doesn't even come into play, because he's going to tell them, whoa, what are you doing? I'm with someone and I'm faithful. This isn't going to happen. And then he'll probably come home and say, hey, look, so-and-so tried to pick me up and that was weird and I told her to back off and I don't want that because I'm with you. And he might even say, even if I was single, I wouldn't want that. But it doesn't matter, because if she tried to pull something and tried to take your guy away from you or whatever, then if you have 100% faith and trust in him not to betray you, then you probably wouldn't have those feelings that you're talking about. Now, there's other reasons those feelings might be there, like a fear of abandonment, a fear of rejection, a fear of being alone. All those could exist, and if they do, those are definitely something to explore in yourself. I won't be going into that in this episode, but definitely you need to explore those things. Go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com. I have stuff like that. Type in the word abandon, type in the word reject, and you'll hear me talk about that stuff. But those are important, because if those are driving your life, if they're driving your experiences and your decisions, then you are going to have a much harder time. All of those insecurities and fears, they hold you back from enjoying life and enjoying the present moment with people that apparently love you and want to be with you and don't want you to freak out if they talk to somebody that they used to be with, which of course is very challenging for you. So let me end with this. Like I said, there's a lot more to talk about on this particular issue, but I've talked about it before, so I highly recommend you listen to those episodes. But let me conclude my reply to you with this. And I want to prepare you for this by telling you it's not pleasant to think about, and it's going to be a little bit morbid, but I'm asking you to help you put your mind in a different place than it is, because where it is now is obviously not healthy or helpful for you and the relationship, and especially for him. Because if it's all on the up and up and he is trustworthy and you continue doing this behavior, you're going to create a rift in the relationship, and it's going to get harder to keep the bond. And this is how the insecurities manifest and become self-fulfilling prophecies, unfortunately. When you're insecure about something that your partner's not doing, they may eventually do it because of your insecurity. Meaning you're introducing this insecurity into the relationship about something that doesn't exist. And the more you visibly display your fears about it, the less transparent they're going to want to be with you, because they don't want to upset you. I mean, it usually starts with good intentions, but the more you are upset about something that doesn't exist might actually manifest what doesn't exist. I'm not saying that he would go out and have any relationships with these people. The manifestation might be you guys break up because he wants to be with somebody who trusts him. He trusts himself probably, but he's with somebody who doesn't trust him, or at least this is his experience of it, because why else would you be angry that he talks to his exes? So he would think that you don't trust him, even though it could all be an insecurity inside of you that has nothing to do with him, but it affects him. I mean, it does have something to do with him, obviously, but it affects him, and because it affects him, he's going to get less and less transparent with you because he doesn't want to upset you. So I'm not saying that is going to happen 100%. I'm just saying it can and does happen. So I want you to try to resolve this as soon as possible. So let me take you down this one last road, which is this. This is the one I want to prepare you for. So I'm going to bring you into this bad space, and I'm going to bring you back, so I won't leave you there. But let's just say that you woke up tomorrow and you found out he died. That's hard. I know. It's not a pleasant thought. But let's just say it happened. You woke up tomorrow and you found out he died. Do you still feel insecure in yourself? I'm twisting this a little bit. Do you feel insecure inside yourself knowing that he's gone? Now I'm giving you this moment to process something in a different way. This isn't the magic pill. This isn't the healing episode. This is an episode to help you dive into a way of thinking that doesn't involve obsessing about things that may not need to be obsessed about. What I mean is, you wake up tomorrow and he's no longer around. do you still feel insecure? You might say, well, one has nothing to do with the other. One is him talking to his exes, and the other is he's gone, he's dead. And if he's dead, of course he's not going to talk to his exes. But I wanted to put you in that state of mind for a couple reasons. One, I wanted you to feel what it was like to not be obsessively thinking about him talking to his exes. That's one part of this. The second part is putting you in a space of what it feels like to be without him. And what do you feel when you're not with him? Because if you have a feeling of that, often what happens, not all the time, but often what happens is that it's so powerful and you don't want it so much that when you learn that he's not dead, he's not gone, that he's actually here, alive and well and present and wants to be with you, often what can happen is that the old feelings of insecurity can be overridden with the appreciation that he's here, he's alive, he's well, he loves you, and he wants to be with you, and you have an opportunity to celebrate this relationship with him by being very present with him, by enjoying every single minute you have with him, because I just took you to a place that was dark and dismal and not fun at all, but bringing you back, telling you, hey, he's alive and well, he's okay, he's with you, you're together, and you have an opportunity to appreciate what you have right in front of you and be present and enjoy every single moment with him, even if he's talking to other people, because he still chooses you, he still chooses to go home with you. It sounds like he wants to spend his life with you as your romantic partner, and assuming that everything else in the relationship is great and you're not leaving out some red flags that I don't know about, if this is a healthy relationship and that's the worst of your problems, you've got the best of so many worlds. So you may not need to hear that from me, you may, I don't know, but I wanted to kind of take you on this roller coaster ride to help you connect with something deeper inside yourself that maybe if you do, it can change things. And of course, my other episodes will be helpful as well. But that's all I've got for you. There are a lot of other paths that we can explore here. Like I said, I've talked about it in other episodes, but I hope this helps. Thank you so much for writing. And I'm going to go right into the next message that came so we can address this too. Here it comes. This person wrote, "Hey, Paul, I'm in a very difficult relationship. There are several areas in the relationship I struggle with, and I try to do my best to get through. This is what brought me to you. My boyfriend of many years has a teenage son. The son visits every weekend. Not many weekends are spent with father and son time, in my opinion. The son sits in his room the entire weekend, only surfacing for food and the bathroom. I can't ask him to do chores or ask any questions or be involved in any aspect of this kid's life, but I'm expected to have a relationship with him and be his friend," my boyfriend says. "I can never plan anything with just the two of us because his son is here. I also don't get notified in advance if he isn't coming. I don't think it's fair to go off doing something fun and leaving the kid behind. Also, I don't always have the extra funds to pay for an extra person. So basically, we don't do very much. We argue a lot, and my boyfriend tends to yell at me, also says very hurtful things, and refuses to apologize for anything because he says I made him angry. There's also a lack of intimacy. We rarely touch each other in passing. There's no hugs or kisses, not even flirting anymore. Yet, of course, I'm expected to have sex, which is very hard due to no other form of intimacy. If I say something, he tells me I am complaining and that I complain about things I can't control. I'm just venting, not complaining. I feel I can't say anything without being taken the wrong way. I have trouble sometimes saying what I mean so that others can understand. I feel so lonely and isolated. I feel like I have no one to talk to. I just want to feel heard, loved, and understood. I've never been in this type of relationship before, and it wasn't always this way, besides the kid part. He will do anything to make me happy, so why are these things such an issue? What can we do to fix this? I love him, and he has been very supportive of me, but these things tend to really bother me." There's the message. Thank you for writing that. Sorry you are going through these challenges. Let me address a few things right off. One of the first things that you talked about was his teenage son. If you know teenagers, they want to stay in their room, only coming up for air when they need something. Some of them, not all of them. There's a lot of teenagers out there that they're at that age. I was this way as well. I was at that age where my room was the most fun place. My mom used to joke with people and say, whenever I was in trouble, she said, "Get out of your room." She would make that my punishment. She would joke about that. She never actually said that, but she would joke with people and say, he's got everything in his room. Everything's in there. There's no reason for him to leave his room. If I had a fridge and a toilet, I probably would never have left my room, except, I was a skateboarder, so I had to go outside. But for the rest of the time, I stayed in my room. So that's what teenagers do. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just you go through these phases in life and you stay in your room a lot. So I don't think that's a problem. I might be wrong. If he's depressed, then maybe he needs attention for sure. And I'm not saying you shouldn't give him attention or the father shouldn't give him attention. I certainly encourage an open line of communication between father and son. But when it comes to the girlfriend, the pseudo stepmom, and you're told by, I guess, your boyfriend not to really have a relationship with him, even though he wants you to have a relationship with him, that doesn't make any sense. So I would probably have a conversation about that, which I'm sure you did. But if I were in your shoes, I would say, hey, look, if I'm going to have a relationship with this kid, I'm going to do something with him. I'm going to buy tickets for him and I to go see a movie. We're going to go to the bouncy fun house, or, not a teenager, but a trampoline, one of those places where you can jump around in these big rooms and there's a lot of other people doing it. Or, whatever, you're going to go zip lining. You're going to set up some time to spend with the son every now and then, because if you can't go out with your boyfriend, maybe you can take his son out and show the son that you actually care about him and you want him to know that he's cared for. So that's just an aside. That could be something you do or not. But this is me. If I really couldn't do anything with my girlfriend when I came home and I really wanted to make friends with her son, that's probably what I would do. In fact, I've done little things like that while he was growing up because I was in your situation. And her son liked to be around us, so he wasn't locked in his room all the time. So it wasn't exactly the same, but there were a lot of things that I did for him and did with him, but we all did together. But if my girlfriend wasn't involved, I would certainly get involved in his life. But again, that's just something that's optional for you if you want to develop a relationship with his son. I know your focus is on your boyfriend and trying to get through this relationship with him and trying to grow closer and be more connected. But I just wanted to address his son for a moment. The second thing that stands out here is all the stuff that you said in the middle of the email contradicts what you said at the end of the message. And I know what you're doing is highlighting all the bad stuff and not really highlighting all the good stuff, because if it was all good, then you wouldn't have to write to me or ask questions like this. But some of the bad stuff needs to stand out more in your mind, almost overriding some of the stuff that you said at the end. So let me give you an example. We argue a lot and my boyfriend tends to yell at me and say very hurtful things and refuses to apologize for anything because I made him angry. That bothers me. If that was happening to me, if my girlfriend never apologized and we never had a discussion about it, and she said, I'm not going to apologize because you made me angry, that is her not taking personal responsibility for her role in our arguments, in our communication, in our relationship, and putting it all on me. That's what he's doing. He's putting it all on you so that not only can he yell at you, but he can also get away with it and make you feel bad about it and never have to feel bad himself because he pushes it all on you. If it's all on you, no wonder you're unhappy. That's not how a relationship works. Relationships are a split responsibility. You both play a role. Even if you're 100% wrong and he's 100% right, there's still the emotional energy that comes out of you, especially during arguments, and especially what you told me here. He gets angry at you and he blames you for his anger, not taking responsibility for his own anger. There's a problem with that. There's a big problem with that. So because you said you haven't been in this type of relationship before, I am highlighting this stuff to you to tell you that that's not healthy behavior. I'm not saying it's not common. There's a lot of people that do this, but it's definitely not healthy. It's definitely toxic behavior. It shouldn't be all on you. And what you said at the end, and this is how it contradicts, is that you said, he'll do anything to make you happy, and you love him, and he's been supportive of you, but these things tend to bother you. So the contradiction I'm looking at is he'll do anything to make you happy. That is a contradiction with making you feel responsible for all the problems in the relationship. It's a contradiction. Someone who will do anything to make you happy will also be vulnerable and say, you know what, I'm sorry I yelled at you. That was not a good thing. I was angry and I shouldn't have done that and I'm sorry. Or even if you said, I felt like I was right, but I still shouldn't have yelled at you like that. You didn't deserve that. I want you to know that I love you and I am sorry. That's somebody who does something to make you happy. Because if you're telling me that this other stuff is part of the anything to make you happy comment that you made, I'm going to ask you to reevaluate what you believe a loving, supportive relationship looks like. I'm challenging you here on purpose. I want you to get it in your head that some of the stuff that you've laid out here is not part of a healthy, supportive, loving relationship. So there may be loving times and there may be a lot of wonderful things about him, but there's some big stuff you're outlining here that if you can't fix, you will never be happy. And I think you know this, but it's important to understand that you've got values not being met, that if they're never met, you'll never be happy and the relationship will continue to disintegrate. And this leads me to hard truths. Hard truths is open communication, even at the risk of losing the relationship. At least hard truths in relationship is open communication, even at the risk of losing the relationship. What I mean by that is, I'll give you an example from my own life. I used to hold back what I really felt in times of stress or anger, or whenever I felt something toward my partner in life, I would hold back because I never wanted to show them I was angry. I never wanted to make them think that they could make me angry because I wanted to appear as a prize. I wanted to appear as the good guy. So I never wanted to show them anger. And every time I did that, I withheld it, I repressed it, and they never saw the real me. So I never really showed up as the real me during the times I was upset or angry. What that did is cause them to interpret who I really was because they couldn't figure out where I was inside of me. And very few people can go through life without ever being angry about something, especially in a relationship where there are two completely different people with their own lives, their own history, and their own emotional triggers and whatever else they're working on. There are always moments where you trigger someone else, where there's a misunderstanding or you did something that offended them. There's always a time like that. And because of that, those are the moments you talk about, and those might be the hard truths you bring up. One of the examples I can think of in my life, it wasn't in a romantic relationship, but I do it in romantic relationships as well. But one of the hard truths I told once was when I had to face my boss at a company I worked for and say something like, you don't know the truth, you're never here. Something like that, because he was talking about another employee, and I said, look, you don't know the truth. You don't know what this employee does because you're never here. You never see it happen. And I said that. It was very scary to build up to this, but I said that knowing that I would probably be fired. I just assumed I would be fired because before then, I never really stood up to my boss. I never was the type of person to say something like that because I always feared getting fired. And that's what I mean by open communication, even at the risk of losing the relationship, or in this case, losing my job. Because it was something I really felt and thought inside. It's full congruency, where my thoughts and my intentions lined up with the behavior I produced. That's what congruency is. You are fully congruent when what you think on the inside is expressed through your behavior. So that's what I did. I expressed what I was thinking, where before I was learning about my personal boundaries and learning to show up authentically and with integrity, I would hide the truth. I would conceal it so that the wrong person didn't hear it and fire me or break up with me or yell at me. I just wanted to be liked. I just wanted to be loved like you. You just wanted to feel understood and heard. But no one's going to hear you if you don't speak the hard truths. Instead, they're going to hear whatever you create that's not the truth. In other words, you're going to say something that's not truthful or not at the deepest level of what you really feel inside of you. So they have to figure out what you really mean. And you hope that they get it, but they don't, because if it continues, they're not getting it, meaning if the bad behavior from them continues, they're not getting it. Or if you cry and you think that because you're upset, they'll stop doing the bad behavior, but they don't, then what you're doing is not conveying the most vulnerable truth inside of you. And this is where I'm going with you today. You need to convey some very vulnerable truths inside of you. And a good example of that might be, let's just start with something like his son. You could say, look, you tell me not to ask any questions. You tell me not to do any chores with him. You tell me not to be involved in any aspect of this kid's life, but you expect me to have a relationship with him and be his friend. So how do you expect me to do that? Get some detailed answers. And you may have had this conversation already. This may not be even a problem in your relationship. You're just worried about this other stuff, like the intimacy and the communication and being yelled at and him not taking responsibility. And these are all very important. But this is, one of the more minor examples. You told me all this. How do you expect me to do it? Give me a specific example. If you don't want me to do any of this other stuff, what should I do? Give me a path. And then if he says, well, I don't know, you'll figure it out. He says something that dismisses you or invalidates your concern. You can say, okay, I haven't figured it out. So either you're going to guide me in this respect, or I'm going to assume that you don't want me to have a relationship with him. I mean, you might have to say this. These are the hard truths. These are the hard conversations. These are the conversations that might lead to big arguments and, yes, even a breakup. But there's a reason I tell you to go in this direction with hard truths, because you have to lay it out on the table. You have to know, both people have to know what they're dealing with. These are truths. You said, you have trouble expressing yourself or saying what you really mean. This is how you do it. You express the truth as you know it. You expressed it to me very clearly. I don't know when he's coming over or he's not coming over, so I can't make plans. So you need to tell me when he's coming over or not. And if he doesn't have a good answer for that, then you say, then I can't develop a relationship with him if you don't keep me informed. This is you taking a stand for yourself. This is you being okay that if he says, well, I don't want to deal with this, I don't want this in my relationship, I'm leaving, then you'll be okay with it, because what he's doing is setting you up to fail. This is what I see. He's setting you up to fail. And if you want to be with someone who continues to set you up to fail, then you will keep failing, and he will keep blaming you for failing. So that's that one example, but let's look at the other stuff that you're dealing with. You say you argue a lot, and your boyfriend tends to yell at you and say very hurtful things, and he refuses to apologize for anything because you made him angry. Where I go with that is, I said things that made you angry, and you said things that hurt me. Will you admit that you said things that hurt me? And he might say, well, yes, I said things that hurt you because you made me angry. Where I go with that is asking, why do you want to hurt me? And he might respond with, why do you want to make me angry? He's going to try to manipulate it, I believe. And if he does, I would then go to the responsibility part. You are responsible for your emotions. I can't make you feel angry. You get angry because of what I say, and then you say hurtful things to me, and I apologize for what I said to you, but you never apologized for what you said to me, which makes me think you meant them. And if you meant to hurt me, I don't want to be with somebody who means to hurt me. You see how I went right for the throat there? The proverbial throat. I went straight to the point. I said, I don't want to be with someone that hurts me. That is a powerful statement, because he might say, well, what are you trying to say? You want to break up? All you have to do is say, no, I'm just telling you, I don't want to be with somebody that hurts me. I love you. I want to be with you. But if you know you're hurting me and you don't apologize for it and you keep going as if nothing ever happened, I'm here to say that I would rather be loved and cared for and supported than be hurt. So you can say that. And I know what I'm saying is all part of a bigger process of an argument that will probably go nowhere. Because if he doesn't want to apologize and he wants to stay right, then you're going to get to the point where you might have to say, look, I don't like this arguing. You're setting me up to fail. You blame me for your own emotions, and I feel alone in this relationship. It doesn't even feel like you love me, and it certainly feels like you don't respect me. This is tough. This is you standing up for yourself. This is you taking your power and showing him that unless there's certain criteria met, which is just treating you with kindness and respect, that you can't be with somebody who doesn't meet that criteria. You can't do it. And it's possible he could say, well, fine, I'm leaving the relationship. And if he does, where was his heart the whole time? Someone who loves you is going to try to make things work. Someone who loves and cares for you and supports you is going to be there for you and hear your words and realize that they're hurting you and they don't want to hurt you, and certainly apologize because they love you and they want you to be happy. And it makes them feel better when you're happy. If it makes him feel better when you're hurt, that says a lot. And I'm really picking on him. I only have one side of the story. I know that. But from what you told me, there's a deeper issue here that he won't be vulnerable with you or something. And what he does is put it all on you. And I have a feeling you probably give in, you probably submit, you probably get to the point where you are frustrated and there's nothing you can do. And I'm giving you some cold, hard facts that this is not a healthy way to communicate. And you, yes, might have to stand up for yourself and say things that are really on your mind. I call it putting it all out on the table. This is how I feel. When you do this, I feel this way. And he might say, well, I wouldn't have to do that if you did this. You can say, yes, we can talk about that, but when you do this, I feel this way. And I talk about this on my Love and Abuse podcast. I always like to say, when you're with somebody that is hurting you, and you ask the question, do you realize when you do this, it hurts me? It gives them an opportunity to change their behavior. It gives them an opportunity to think about what they're doing. Because sometimes people are on autopilot. They take advantage of the time you have together. They don't even think about what they're doing to you, and they do stupid things, and that can happen. But that's why a good question is, do you realize what you're doing or what you're saying is hurting me? And if they say, well, no, I don't mean to hurt you, then you follow up with the question, well, now that you know, will you stop doing it? Again, this is hard with somebody who might be trying to manipulate or push a certain agenda through, but it's important that you put that on the table as well. Because what will happen is if they act the same way again in the future, knowing they're hurting you, that says a lot. That says a lot about what they're doing. So those are my two questions. Do you realize that what you just did or said hurt me? And if they say no, now that you realize it, will you stop doing it? If he says, well, yes, because I'm angry and I want to hurt you, now you know that he's knowingly hurting you. It's not like some subconscious thing. He knows it. Yes, I know I'm hurting you. I want you to hurt because you made me angry. That'll probably be his response. And if he says that, then you go right back to that statement, I don't want to be with somebody that hurts me. And I would probably follow it up with, even if I make them angry. Because you have to deal with your anger. You have to figure it out. You have to tell me, hey, look, I'm angry. Let's talk about this. You can't just be angry and then use it as an excuse to get away with anything you want to do to me. That's not how a relationship is supposed to work. A relationship is supposed to be about communicating, and it involves both of you being vulnerable. Hey, look, I said some pretty harsh things. Let's talk. And then you open up. But if he never wants to open up, then you're not going to find the intimacy and the connection that you want to find. And let me stress this one last point to you. The lack of intimacy. You said you rarely touch each other in passing. There's no hugs or kisses. There's no flirting. Yet, of course, I'm expected to have sex, which is very hard due to no other form of intimacy. What do you do about that? You don't have sex. I know, it's a crazy idea. It's a crazy theory. But if you're expected to have sex, like you said, then don't. Withhold it. Yes, it sounds like a punishment. It sounds like a manipulation, but it's not, because what you're going to do is say, hey, look, I'm not in the mood. You've been mean to me. You've hurt me. You've said some pretty awful things. You've set me up to fail with your son. I can't feel a connection from you. You never look at me. You never touch me. It's like I'm not even here until you're ready to have sex. So I'm not in the mood. Again, it's standing up for yourself. It's finding your power and realizing that this could be the very last thing you say, because the relationship could end in that moment. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when you stand up for yourself and speak what's really on your mind, put it all on the table, you give everyone an opportunity to deal with the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help you. The whole truth is out there. You're saying exactly what you feel and what you mean. If you're expected to be intimate with someone who's not intimate with you, then he's going to have to realize that just expecting it doesn't automatically get it. There's no accountability. He does everything wrong and still gets the prize. There's something wrong with that formula. No one should be able to do everything wrong and still get the prize. That's not how it should work. And I hope you understand what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that, say this, then you'll break up and that's how it should be. Not at all. I'm saying if you want this relationship to work, the way it's working now isn't working. It's not working. It's toxic. If you want it to work, then you have to do something different, which is put it all on the table, speak your hard truths, and let the chips fall where they may. And I know that's easier for me to say than do, but this is exactly how I've operated for many years now. If you need a reference on how this works, I'll tell you what, every time I've spoken a hard truth in any relationship I've ever been in, it has never led to a breakup and always led to a very difficult conversation that strengthened the bond. That's how it works. You pull out a hard truth and you say, this is what I feel. What you're doing is hurting me and I don't want it anymore. I can't stand it. I don't want to be around that. So I want to let you know that's how I feel. And if they keep doing the bad behavior, then the accountability is you have to follow through. If you really don't want to be with somebody who hurts you and they continue hurting you, you might have to love them from afar. You might have to do a temporary separation. You might have to. I'm not saying you introduce that, though. I'm saying you express what your needs are, which I know you said it's hard to do, but I'm giving you a lot of pointers here. Express the truth of what's going on inside of you, because I have a feeling that, especially what you already said about sex, when it comes to sex, you give in instead of saying, you know what, I'm not in the mood. You didn't woo me all week. You called me names, and you made me feel like a piece of dirt instead of your queen, which he should absolutely do, make you feel like a queen. And now you want intimacy. Intimacy doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts way before. It starts with the romantic gestures and the touches and the talking and all kinds of things that lead up to the prize. I'm not saying that's the only prize, but this is the way he's looking at it. He can do everything wrong and still get the prize. So my advice is not easy to follow. I get it. I understand, because if you've never been this way, someone who's really open with the hard truths, it is very difficult to step into that, but it changes your life. Every time I've spoken a hard truth, every time I put it on the table, it led to a difficult conversation because we're both vulnerable, but you get to find out just how much love is in the relationship, because a relationship full of love and connection is going to survive these things. A relationship without that love and without that connection, it may not. Because what ends up happening is the other person breaks up because they're not really trying. Nobody who's really trying is going to break up. Somebody who isn't trying and doesn't really care or doesn't really want to strengthen the relationship is going to leave. And then the question comes up, do you want to be with somebody who doesn't want to try, doesn't want to make things better, doesn't want it to grow and strengthen, doesn't want to build anything? Do you really want to stay with somebody like that? That's how you find out. These hard truths come up, you put them all on the table, and then you have the conversation, and then you find out where the chips fall. Again, every relationship I've ever had, when I've pulled out the hard truths, the relationship has gotten stronger. So there's my opinions and insights. I hope they're helpful. They're not easy to follow, but if you want to see change in your relationship, one of you has to do it. One of you has to make a change. One of you has to show up differently. And I have a feeling from what you've said, it's not going to be him that shows up differently until you do. And what you need to do might involve being more forward, being more willing to risk the relationship. And if you're not willing to risk the relationship for a stronger bond, don't listen to anything I say. I'm serious. Do not listen to anything I say, because there is a risk in what I'm saying. But to me, the only risk is losing someone that really doesn't care or gaining more love and connection than you ever had. That's how I see the risk. So if your number one fear is a fear of being alone, or even a fear of abandonment, and that overrides everything else in the relationship, then you may stay with somebody who really doesn't care enough to try harder. And I just don't want that for you. I hope that's not you. And if it is you, then all I have to say about that is you already feel alone in the relationship. So what do you got to lose? Again, don't listen to me. I don't want you to take my advice and suddenly you broke up and now you're lonely and miserable. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to guide you along a different path that you may not have taken yet. Do with it as ye will. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for writing that, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I'll be right back with my thank yous and my goodbyes and my final words right after this. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to thank our sponsor today, a great service called BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/brain and get 10% off your first month. I also want to thank the patrons of the week. These are the financial backers of the show. I love reading their names and appreciating them every time I read them. Julie, Jessica, Jamie, Holly, good to see you, Angel, Michelle, Angela, Jillian, Chris, Kathleen, Lisa, this is quite a long list. James, Anita, Eric. Eric is a new patron. Very good to have you on board, Eric. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. Anne Marie, you are a new patron as well. Awesome to have you here. Thank you so much for your support. Victoria, Tracy, Christy, and Crystal. Oh, it's the Christy Crystal week. Good to see every single one of you. Thank you so much for your support. This is how the show continues. The backbone of the show requires finances, and it's been almost 8 years, so people are pulling through. People are helping out if they can, and I always say if you can and you want to, head over to moretob.com and you can be a monthly patron and get all the goodies over there, or you can send a single donation like Regan. Regan sent a donation and said, I'll return with a monthly subscription as soon as possible. Thank you for saving my life. Regan, you don't have to donate for me saving your life. Well, first of all, I don't think I saved your life. I think I might have nudged you in the right direction, but you had to do the work. So I'll take a tiny modicum of credit and tell you that you found a way inside you to save your own life. Regan, thank you so much for your donation, and I'm so glad that you are here listening to the show and having this life and continuing on this planet. I am so glad you are here doing that. Thank you, Regan, and thank you all supporters of the show. Again, head over to moretob.com if you find value in the show and you'd like to give back as well. I also mentioned the Love and Abuse podcast real quick during the episode. Love and Abuse will help you determine if you are in an emotionally abusive relationship. Talking about relationships today, it's a great time to mention the Love and Abuse podcast. Whether it's a romantic relationship, platonic, or family, if you leave many conversations feeling bad, find out if you're being emotionally abused by checking out the Love and Abuse podcast over at loveandabuse.com. And a quick mention, if you are listening to this show and you feel like you are being hurtful or difficult, or you discovered that you're emotionally abusive and you actually don't like that about yourself and you'd like to change that about yourself, head over to healedbeing.com. I created a program over there. You get the first 4 lessons for free, and there's no credit card to sign up. You just put your email address in there and get the lessons and start the healing journey today, because you'll never have the relationship that you really want unless you stop hurting people. And sometimes it's hard to stop. I was there. I used to hurt people I loved. Now I have a show about it. But I had to learn a lot. I had to go through a lot of failures, a lot of relationship endings, a marriage that ended, and just a lot of hurt feelings that I created. And I'm trying to do what I can to make sure that that doesn't happen to you and to other people, so that they can create the relationships they want. You deserve a great relationship, no matter what side of the fence you're on. If you are trying to have a great relationship, you deserve a great relationship. But sometimes old behaviors and old trauma and current PTSD gets in the way, and you need to figure out a way out of that. So that's why I do the Love and Abuse podcast, and that's why I do the Healed Being program, to help everyone create great relationships. Check those out if you're in either situation. And finally, thanks to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. And for my final words, I'm going to read another message to end the show on another relationship question. This person wrote, "My husband and I dated for a few months until I found out I was expecting, and we married a month later. I don't recommend this method to anyone," she says. "We have, however, made it to almost 20 years. Wow, I'm shocked as you are. We were only in our 20s when we got married, so not even grown up yet. Now that I'm nearing my 40s, things have changed. I want different things, and I'm not so sure they include my husband." And the email goes on, but I'm just going to read you some highlights. "He is overbearing and controlling. He loses jobs a lot. I do all the work, and I bring home the money. He's been out of work for a long time now, and I've been trying to give him space and tell him everything will be okay. I'm starting to wonder if it's even worth it. Do I even want to try to make this work with someone who is so hard to live with? He's got a short temper with me and the kids. They don't even want to be around him because he will bark at them for every little thing. I feel completely overwhelmed. I feel like when bad things happen in my life, he goes out of his way to make me feel worse. He went home with some random girl once. It almost broke me, but I knew I couldn't leave in fear of my kids having to be with him, even just on the weekends. Now here I am a few years later, things are still not great, and I'm starting to think that maybe I don't have to be with him. I'm just so scared. I'm scared because he is mean. When we fight, I see a side of him that scares me to death. How do I find the strength to fight for my happiness? How do I start this process that seems so daunting? Thank you for getting me to this point. I hope I can figure out my life and move on." Wow, what a message to end the show with. Thank you so much for sharing that, and I'm so sorry you're dealing with that. And my first question is something I've asked before, but I want you to really consider it. You've probably heard me say this before, but really consider the next year. I want you to think of 1 year from now. If nothing changes within this next year, would you be okay being there? How do you feel? What's going through your mind? You've been there another year. How do you feel? If nothing changes. How about if nothing changes in 5 years? How do you feel about being there? Really consider those. If you have to pause, go ahead and do it. But think about, if nothing changes, where will you be inside your head and in your heart in a year? 365 days. That's daily what you're dealing with now for another year, or another 5 years, or another 10 years. So right now I'm just setting you up to understand what's going to happen if nothing changes. Now I ask the question, if things only get worse, where will you be in a year? Or 5 years? Let's stretch it out. 5 years. Nothing's changed and it only has gotten worse. Where will you be? I'm giving you a mindset shift in case you haven't visited this yet. And you may be saying, I already know this. It's already been several years. I'm already in that space, Paul. Help me out. I already know. So if you're in that space already, all right, now you know what will happen if you do nothing. I know you said you're nearing your 40s, so you have a lot of time left. You have a lot of time to enjoy life and get out and see things and meet new people. There's a lot that you can do. And I'm not saying you should break up and go your own way. This is your decision. But I'm just saying, if nothing changes or it gets worse, how much more time are you going to spend with someone who doesn't seem to respect you, care about you, want you to be happy? How much more time do you spend with somebody who really doesn't seem to care about your heart? And I don't know if that's true. I'm only assuming that's true from what you told me. But if that is true, then it's a valid question. How much more time will you spend with somebody who doesn't care about your heart, your emotional state, your happiness? I know what my answer is, but I understand it's difficult. You said he gets mean, or he seems really mean. So when it comes to that, if you fear any violence, any physical violence, or any type of aggression from him, you definitely need to have some very supportive people. Let's start building a support system with people you trust, so that if you need to leave, you plan carefully your escape, if you want to call it that. But that's what I like to call it with dangerous people. You need to escape. You might need to escape, which means you need to plan it. And planning it means you do it without his knowledge. And I'm not saying that you should do this. I'm just saying, if you want to leave and you believe he's hurtful or can be hurtful, then you need to plan this carefully. That way you can get out and be okay and do what you need to do. But, get some friends or a friend that you can trust and can help you out, so that when you plan it, you can do your thing really quick as possible and make it work. And you asked, how do I find the strength to fight for my happiness? Well, let me ask you, do you want to be happy? Yes, of course I want to be happy. I know, I hear it. But I want you to really consider it. Do you want to be happy? And I know the answer, of course. I know the answer. But I'll follow it up with this. Would you be okay if you were never happy again? I know it's a dismal place to think about, but being with somebody where you look at the trend of what's been happening for many years now, that trend line is not going up and to the right, showing more progress and more happiness. It's either staying the same or going down and to the right. You got the whiteboard up in the meeting, and it shows the profit and the loss, and hopefully the ups and downs are always trending up. But if they're not, and you're in a relationship where the happiness is down and there seems to be no forward momentum or progress toward happiness, then you will never be happy again. Do I know this for sure? Am I painting a dismal fatalist picture? I know I'm painting that picture, yes, but I don't know it for sure. All I know is what you have in front of you today is the only knowledge you have, and what has happened for the past few weeks, months, and years. That's all you know. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but you have to assume what has happened yesterday will also happen tomorrow. Unless yesterday was a fluke. If yesterday was a fluke and you had the greatest day ever with your husband, then it may not be the way to gauge this. But a good way to gauge this is you look at the trend line. Has it been going steady along the way or down and to the right? Or has it been rising up, meaning more happiness, more fulfillment, more satisfaction in your relationship and in your life? Because if it hasn't been doing that, the trend line will show you what's going to happen tomorrow. What happened last year will happen tomorrow. So if you want to know how to fight for your happiness, sometimes it involves accepting that if you do nothing, you will never be happy. Sometimes it takes that kind of dismal outlook. But the good news is you can do something. You can fight for your happiness in a way that's not fighting at all. You can just do what you need to do. Sometimes you have to disconnect from that scared part of you and step into what I like to look at as the adult part of you. Adult has many meanings, but we'll just look at it as the person who's going to take charge of your life. The adult knows what to do. You step into that adult and you step out of the scared little child that you might have been being. And I don't mean to say that as an insult or offensively. I just mean when we're driven by fear, it's usually a childlike fear that involves old childhood coping mechanisms or survival mechanisms. And when you're a child, you develop these coping mechanisms because you don't want to get hurt and you want to survive. And when those are running in your life, then you are driven by fear. And it's important to step out of that childlike space inside of you and step into that adult space that knows how to take charge, that will say, look, I got this. No problem. I'm going to take care of this. I will take care of us. What that means to me is you're going to take care of that little inner child inside of me, and you're going to take care of me as a whole human being that has emotions and feelings and thoughts that deserves happiness. This is almost like parenting yourself as the most healthy, most loving, most caring parent that you've either never had or do have, and you can utilize their support too. Or if you don't have it, you step in for yourself and you say, I got this. You'll be taken care of because I want you to be happy and you deserve it. So you asked how to start the process. I gave you some tips. Start getting a support system and know that it will be daunting for the child inside of you, that inner child, and it will be scary because big steps are often scary, but your strength comes after you take the step. I know that's opposite, but I want you to understand that sometimes you have to take the step to get the strength. It sometimes works in the opposite direction. So if you take the step, the strength will come because the next step has to be taken. You take the first step and you get the strength because you've already taken the first step. I told you my story, right? I told you my story when I got back surgery back in 2011. I don't know when it was. I lived up 4 flights of stairs and I came home from the hospital after 5 days after some pretty serious back surgery. And I looked up the stairs thinking, there's no freaking way I'm going to be able to climb these stairs. There's no way. There's just no way I'm going to be able to make it to the top and get home. And I looked up into the sky and I could see the clouds. I knew the rain was coming. So here I am at the bottom of the steps at our condo when I was married. We lived in Oregon. I looked up the stairs again and then I felt the first raindrop. And I thought, damn, I'm just not going to be able to do this. Here I am at the bottom step. Not only am I scared of falling, but I'm scared of breaking what I just got fixed. I did not have the strength. I did not have the courage. I felt like I didn't have any of that. And there I was staring at the first step. And I just decided to take the step. I just decided to lift my leg and put it on that stair. And when I did, I lifted myself up and I said, wow, I made the first step. And that's when I developed the philosophy that I live by to this day. If I can take the first step, I can take the rest. If you can take the first step, you can take the rest. It will happen. After that first step, I found my courage. I found my strength. It happened, and it will happen with you too. sometimes you just need to take the first step. I'll never forget walking in the door, making it all the way up, and heading straight to the bed. I was done. That's it. I made it. I made it through. And it was a feeling of relief, and you will feel it too. Whatever steps you believe you need to take, and you will make it too. There's my motivational speech for you. It's all true. I went through this, and it was absolutely worth it. And you will be a stronger, happier person when you take the steps that you know you need to take. Even if you're afraid to take them, even if you don't have the courage, it will come. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for writing. I hope this helps. And of course, always keep an open mind and make that step into your power. This helps you be firm in your next decision and action so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve, even if it's 4 flights. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing.